Let's talk and get the views of Robert Weiner, the former spokesperson for Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, who's now National Democratic strategist and a good friend of Joe Biden. Hello, Robert.
It's a pleasure to be with you, and thanks for having me on your wonderful radio station.
It's good to have you with us, Robert.
Yep.
Give us your analysis of what we're hearing now from Joe Biden. It's caused a few waves, I can tell you, on this side of the Atlantic. Suggested that an American trade deal, which is a big prize of Brexit, if we leave the European Union without a deal with Europe, that could be snatched away.
Well, I think more that can snatch it away is the fact that you guys have not come up with a decision on Brexit. And we did an op-ed, you remember, in The Independent just in December, saying that you should have had another referendum because the first one was so close. And meanwhile, you've been twirling on this. And to be honest, you don't know which end is up any more than this country knows which end is up, and it's usually the wrong end on Trump.
Yeah.
So there's real problems here with how Britain has handled Brexit. And I still, to this moment, don't understand why you haven't had a referendum to let the people decide. I'm convinced that after you made the wrong decision in the beginning to get out, but you made it because it's easy to say we want change, that once you saw what the implications were, it was so close that the British people would have voted for staying in Brexit, but you never let them get there, and the Parliament wouldn't, and you stayed, and you were compulsive and obstinate about it, just like the Trump supporters are.
Robert, just to be clear,
I've got
Robert.
a real problem on how you're handling this.
Sure. Look, Robert, just to be clear, obviously you're entitled to your opinion and you're expressing it very clearly and very strongly.
We're not alone on it, and the polling shows that the polling might have well gone in favor of going back into the deal if you had done a repoll.
Well, it might have done, but it didn't. There was only one referendum, and
you never had it.
Well, there was one referendum, and the decision was to leave.
You had the right to more. You're a democracy. You had the right to another one.
Well, I have a right to 27 referendums if that's what if that's what the government of the day chooses to do. But that wasn't what they chose to do. We had one referendum, and it was won. Not by a big margin, as you say, by fairly a narrow margin. But it was, you will concede, Robert, that was a matter for the British people. That was a matter for British politics.
Correct.
Now, you're entitled to a view.
And the Parliament took it away from the British people.
Yeah, but now we're looking at a thing where there is, well, a mutual interest involved. Is it not in the interest of the United States to strike a deal with Britain if that can be done? Or
Absolutely.
Is it the case that Britain is much less of a priority for America these days, and talk of a special relationship, that's yesterday?
Well, I think it'll come back together because we love Britain. We absolutely love you, and you love the American people. You hate our president, and you rightfully, your parliament said he was an idiot, and you didn't even want to let him come and speak in Britain. And I remember that vote; it was the right one. And then, and likewise, we're gonna correct Donald Trump. When Joe Biden gets elected, and the polling this morning, according to Quinnipiac and others, it's 9 points. He's up at very well ahead. And the American people won't be fooled by some Durham deal or announcement on this and that. We will not be fooled again like we were last time at the tail end. I think this is a pretty solid lead that Biden has, and I think we're in for a change. He will be a rational president. And, you say a lot of things in a campaign about you won't do a deal with Britain. We will do a deal with Britain, and we'll make sure that you and we feel that it's the right one.
Yeah. I mean, look, tell me about what's driving this. I mean, it's true to say, isn't it, that Irish-American voters in America, they are important on Capitol Hill. And some of the people who have taken umbrage, who have not been happy about Joe Biden's intervention on Twitter overnight, believe that's maybe clouding the American view. I don't expect you to agree with that. I just want to hear your thoughts on it.
No. Look, I hosted George Mitchell here at the National Press Club. He was a brilliant negotiator. And he helped make this thing go right, the former majority leader of the Senate. And it was a good deal. And so there's a lot of respect for George Mitchell, and there's that involved in it. But I'm sure that Britain will find a way to make sure that everything is smooth so that you and we can do trade when Biden is elected. I'm convinced of it. So let me take the optimistic view on that. But there has to be respect for the 1998 deal too. Nobody wants this. You guys had so much flurry between Northern Ireland. You had war. You had horrible things going on all the time over there, and it settled down some, and it settled down a lot. And there's a reason for that, and it's a good thing that it settled down.
Yeah.
So unless you figure that part out, that's up to you to figure out. If you figure out a way to make sure that there's peace and tranquility over there and between them and you, and then we can do a deal. But you got to figure that part out.
When it comes to the deal, there's nothing wrong with optimism. The more, the better. But it's not as simple as that, though, is it? Because when it comes to getting a deal through Congress, whoever is the president, Congress is going to be looking out for American interests, and that will get in the way of an easy deal with the United Kingdom. I'm thinking in particular of the need, as America would see it, as Congress might see it, for deregulation on food exports, for example. The subject, Rob, you'll probably know, that keeps coming up in discussion on this side of the Atlantic is chlorine-washed chicken, or it might be hormone-treated beef. And we've had from senior ministers in the British government, they say they're not going to deregulate or loosen or weaken regulations on food standards for the sake of a deal. So you've got some big obstacles right there, haven't you?
Well, I went on a negotiation trip for NAFTA, and the reason that there was real opposition was because the Mexican government wouldn't do environmental standards and safety standards. And I remember Bernie Sanders was on that delegation, and he took us around the back of the building that the government there wanted us to see, and in the back of the building there was raw sewage going through. So we've gotten smart, and yes, there have to be environmental and work standards in these deals, and that includes with you too. But something tells me that Britain is a lot less bad on those kinds of sanitation and safety issues than the government of Mexico is. So I think they'll work that out too.
All right. Good to talk to you, Robert. Thanks for coming on. That's Robert Weiner, former spokesperson for Bill Clinton and George W. Bush.